Hi, guys. It's Kerry and Tiffany with the Joyride Show, and we're back with such an amazing show for you today.
We are so excited. I am brand new to meeting our guest today. Kerry has had the pleasure of interviewing Cynthia Sue Larson last year, and it has been such a pleasure to get to know you through your YouTube videos and your books and your blog. And I cannot wait to have this discussion today. So I'm going to read a little bit about your bio, just for anybody who's been under a rock and doesn't know who our guest is. Um, Cynthia Sue Larson, known as the Quantum Optimist. I love that title. Best-selling author, researcher, and transformational speaker who helps people visualize and access whole new worlds of possibility. Her favorite question
Oh,
to ask in every situation is, how good can it get?
Yay.
Books, including Quantum Jumps, Reality Shifts, High Energy Money, and Aura Advantage. A transformational speaker, presented papers at international conferences on science, spirituality, and consciousness. You're also an intuitive spiritual life coach who help people find love, meaning, and prosperity by visualizing and accessing new worlds of possibility. You have a degree in physics from UC Berkeley, a master's degree, a doctor in divinity, and you're a black belt. Yeah. And your reality shifters is a monthly easing that I understand you've done since like 1999. So for over 20 years, you've been publishing continuous
Yes.
findings from scientific research in the fields of quantum physics, quantum biology, the placebo effect, positive psychology, sociology, alternative medicine. And it's really dedicated to exploring the way consciousness interacts with the physical universe. Okay, that's a big bite of this. And so our listeners, our Joy Tribe, can subscribe to your free monthly easing and stay updated with everything on realityshifters.com. And then just looking on your YouTube channel, that is a wealth of information with these bite-sized pieces, these videos about quantum physics, meditation, the Mandela effect, plant music, you name it. So lots of ways to access this plethora of information that you've been researching and sharing for a couple of decades now. So
oh,
where do we start?
I know, and there are things that we want to definitely dive into. One of them being at the towards the end of the show. I think we are going to. This is this is this will sound amazing. A concert with a plant. They sing,
Yes.
and I can't wait to get into that. But I want to start with saying last week Tiffany and I did a show, and during the show I was telling her, I said, I really want to frame what this world could look like, because I feel like if we have a frame, it starts to create a roadmap, and then we start to see it. And maybe that's where we can dive in. And I'm just going to dive in. I'll put a link to the last show. You can learn all about her. I feel like we don't have enough time to cover what I want to cover, and so
Right.
we're just going to go in head first. I would like to start with, this is 2021. We're about halfway through, and I feel like we're speeding up, and I feel like our timelines, I would say maybe around December, I felt like I could see two timelines. And I felt like there was one timeline that was going more AI, and one timeline that was that when we all talk about going to the fifth dimension,
The ascension.
ascending, going within, and you cover that. You
Have
really
names for
the
it
meat of
and
that.
have researched this. This is, yeah, so
I
we really
have. Yeah.
about that transhumanism versus revhumanism and the concept
Right.
developed around that. Can we start there?
Yes.
Let's do it. So I want to give credit, first of all, to the Hopi Prophecy Rock, which is a very ancient. Maybe you've got a picture of it. Oh, good. Yeah, there it is. So if you're looking at anyone looking at that picture, I can describe it as you hold it up for just a moment. So that shows two timelines at the top. You might think, why would a Hopi Prophecy Rock show timelines? Well, guess what? They were basically talking about this time that we're in right now. Down at the bottom left is the creator, and then the two lines, one at the top, I'm just going to call it basically transhumanism. It's where humans are marching along doing just fine, but kind of above it all, sort of like they don't think they have to be so responsible for the earth, our relationships with each other, and everything that we would have reverence for, but instead kind of giving that authority elsewhere. It doesn't explain where. Then the lower line, this is much more obvious. It's just living life in just harmony with plants and animals and each other, having respect and reverence for each other, ourselves, the earth, really recognizing that there's this interconnection between all beings and being caretakers here on the earth. So I just want to give credit where credit's due. So there's the credit. There it is, written in stone. What else do we need?
Well, and how long ago did they do this?
That is ancient. I don't know how old that is, but like a lot of the petroglyphs, that's a very sacred rock carving. We're just showing it. They've traced what the little scratches are on the rocks. So someone has actually, a long time ago, generations ago, the wisdom keepers in the Hopi tribe were able to document this very wise teaching, which is basically acknowledging that the world has ended many times before. Part of their mythology includes that. I wrote a paper, an article actually for, what magazine was that? Parabola, the magazine of myth, tradition, and folklore, about, and the title of it was Comes True Being Hoped For. And so that it was in the threshold issue of Parabola magazine, and it drew my attention precisely because of all this. And I've been tracking this very same thing since 7th grade when I did a report on mass die-offs on the earth. I've been aware of this all my life. So it's something I've been watching. Now we're in it big time. Very few people can deny that we're in the middle of something. Some people are looking for solutions in transhumanism, which was a term coined by a Mr. Huxley, not Aldous Huxley, the other one, Julian Huxley. I had to write his name down because I keep thinking of the author. But Julian Huxley had written that transhumanism, what he envisioned for it was that the human species can, if it wishes, transcend itself. We need a name for this new belief. I don't think he saw the Hopi Rock. Perhaps transhumanism will service man remaining man, but transcending himself by realizing new possibilities. Well, maybe that sounded better at the time that he wrote that than it does now. But what's happened, as most of us know now, is that we're looking at things like the singularity, where this great cosmic consciousness, and some people even deify it as a flying spaghetti monster. They make fun of it, but they're kind of giving it this whole life force energy that is this AI creator. I'm not a fan of that, and I would actually be a fan of what the Hopi are proposing. I don't think they had a name for it, so in this article that I wrote about Revhumanism, I came up with the term. So that's just in a nutshell summary of the whole situation.
So I know that, was it last week or the week before last? I'm sure they've done this before, but that's the first time I'd heard of this. I don't know if I told you this. There was a gentleman that couldn't write. I don't know if he was quadriplegic or paraplegic, and they put 2 implants or 3 implants in his brain about the size of an aspirin, and they told him to, and this sounds like magic, but they told him to think of what he would write, and it wrote. I mean, and he was able to write it, his mind, with his mind. So on one hand, you look at that and you think, well, that's incredible. But where do we stop? And where, I mean, that, to me, that's the question, is how far do we go, and how far do we allow AI?
And that's why I go back to the Hopi Rock. I think they had it right, because they're not focusing on the nitty gritty of, do we allow this technology for this person? It's not about that. It's really, let's go back to respect and reverence. If you maintain ethics, respect, reverence, and that heart connection with others, then we'll be on the right track. It's when we lose that, it's this whole idea that the verbiness, the beingness matters. In our culture, we fixate on, oh, here's a goodie, a device. You can install it in someone's brain, and now they can do something they didn't do before. Can we sell it to you now? Because we're the big money investors and we want our quarterly returns. And there's the problem. So we don't want to get ourselves going down this road to nowhere. It's like climbing a stairway to heaven for sure, but it doesn't go anywhere. It fizzles out. I love the way the rock illustrates it. It looks like you're going up, 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 and then suddenly, what are you standing on? The cloud. I think that's just brilliant. What is the cloud? I mean, could they have drawn that any better than they did? I don't think so.
I know. I mean, and just cloud in general. How have you heard people say it's in the cloud, whatever the cloud is? Nobody knows what the cloud is. I'm playing with that. It is, and I'm not sure how far into this you go. I am fascinated by ETs and craft and UFOs, but I know that there are people like Bashar, who else? And they talk about coming back, that AI, we gave up our
Our emotions
humanity
and our humanity.
for AI, and we just it just atrophied. Our hearts, our compassion, our humanness atrophied. And for the sake, do I have that right? I mean, I know
Yeah.
you've studied him, or not so you.
Yeah, I just remember
Looking
Stephen
at it.
Hawking saying that AI was our biggest threat to humanity. And that really woke me up because I'd never considered it before as a threat. I thought it was going to be a good thing. We can use all this technology to our advantage. How could it turn against us or be a threat? But by digging just a little deeper, it's not that far away.
Well, look
I
at
think well, if you focus on the noun, again, I don't mean to harp on this, but really, I don't think AI is intrinsically bad. I think that once again, if it's got reverence, if it has, you may think ethics, how could you have ethical AI? You can actually instill in it this awareness, like I think Isaac Asimov had the laws of robotics. So it's like he was foreseeing all of this. But basically, if AI knows that it needs to be concerned about the well-being of everyone and freedom matters and basic things like that, then, but you have to build that in. You have to let it know that this matters. If you don't have that, then it won't know, and it will be optimizing things the way our corporations optimize things. That is bad for humans. We know that. We know that already.
well, it feels like sort of like the Wild West of our internet. In order to build that in and to have uniformed laws, I would think you would almost have to centralize it. And that, to me, that's the part that we may have to cross that bridge. We have to get to that place.
That is yeah, I think that intrinsically is a problem if you centralize it, because, well, it's just, I've had, I don't know how, there's no easy way to say this. It's going to sound nutty, but if there's such a thing as past lives, my most recent one is from centuries in the future, in a possible future, which hopefully we'll never experience. If all goes well, then we won't go anywhere like what I had PTSD from, because it did have a central artificial intelligence. It sounds like the movie The Matrix or The Terminator, which I couldn't bring myself to watch that movie until I felt like I had done some work to clear the possibility of that future from coming into being. That's how real it was to me. But the danger's not over, because people can still choose to give up our humanity. It's written right there in the stone, to lose our connection with the earth, with one another, with really caring. If we lose that, it's not about the things. It never was. The things are okay. I mean, they're just a thing. All things are fine in and of themselves. What happens that can go wrong is where we give up our sense of what matters, when we lose our beingness, really lose yeah.
Relationship. So do you feel like this is an individual choice to walk, to choose your path, and then collectively that brings everybody along, or everybody's going to experience their own reality based on what they individually choose, and that there are two worlds? There are the new earth and the old earth, and it's sort of the separate timelines
the
that
diverging,
coexisting depending on what you individually choose.
Right. I do feel like we do experience reality individually, and we're getting some evidence of that from physics experiments of all things, just in the last couple of years, showing, I think maybe I talked about that last time, that there's some research that shows that two observers at the same place and same time can and do observe two different things, which seems impossible if we believe that there's only one objective reality. So if, of course, that experiment is being redone, and I think people don't like that possibility, so they're trying to re-envision it. It's the same old thing, I think, with quantum physics, including consciousness. But to answer your question, Tiffany, I think yes, it is an individual thing. Fortunately, that's what we have. The ability to choose. We've got our sovereignty of our own free will. So it makes sense that that would be where the choice resides for each of us, to choose reverence and respect and revitalization, regeneration, basically earth and growing things, beautiful living things. There's nothing intrinsically bad, again, about robotics and artificial intelligence and all the tools, but they need to be seen in proper context, just like any other tool, which would have some respect given to it as having some form of sentience when we start instilling that within our things. But it's important to continually respect that. That's where the breaking point happens. It's where you lose. I think you can see it right there on the stone. That's why I bring it up. It's not some old, dusty, musty rock that means nothing to our times. Hardly. I think it's extremely relevant.
Yeah, the first time I saw that, there was what is his name? Not Robert. I'll have to go back and check it out. But he wrote a book, and in the book, society for like the seventh, eighth time was about to start over, and there were caves that had evidence that we had reached this point before. And I do believe that. I do believe that, we think we are so advanced, but I think there have been many before us, probably us. It's like, oh, here they are. Oh, man, they almost made it this time.
That's what the Hopis say. That's their story, that we're on the fifth world and there will be 7 of these. So they see an inevitability to it. Like, it's going to happen. It's like, we've been through this before. There's been a great flood, and some of their mythologies match other mythologies on the planet. And they do write about people like the ant people coming to help out, which sounds like UFOs and sounds like the Greys, actually. And they talk about how there had been some civilizations on Earth that had been fighting with one another, like with flying things in the sky. So there's a lot of their mythology that seems extremely tuned in, very aware of these possibilities. And I think that the takeaway, I'd like to stay focused. I love the ET ideas too, but I think the main idea, even if you do consider ETs, it has to come down to what are we doing to help ourselves? Again, we don't want to be looking up and saying, solve everything for us. And we don't want to do that with the ETs. We don't want to do that with AI. I mean, we might want to, but that's the wrong thing to do.
Well, but what you're saying is you go inside. The answers are inside. No one saves you. I mean, that has been, I think that was the biggest aha that really set me on my path. No victims, nobody saves you.
Right.
Save yourself.
I have a question about this.
Okay.
Yes.
In between the 2 paths, there's an intersecting line here. For some reason, that really stands out to me. That the intersection.
I think it's a point where people, they can be like, I'm putting everything in the cloud, and they're just humming along with their cell phones and their apps, and they've almost got blinders on, and they got their little, all the new technology, the glasses. Remember those Google glasses? So they're doing all that stuff. And then at some point, like, wait a minute, this feels wrong. And I can't raise my kids this way or whatever. And then they take that route right back down. In this, like a lot of us are gardening at home now. And so it's realizing like, okay, I was on that path, but it felt wrong. I don't think I want to live forever. I don't want to put my consciousness in some singularity, some, newfangled glass jar on the wall and say, there's grandpa, and you can talk to him forever. That's kind of weird. And like, no. I'm just going to be a gardener. I'm going to keep tending to animals and plants and connecting with my neighbors and really having genuine connections with everyone and everything. So it's that moment, like you can choose which path you're on.
That feels like hope to me, that line. Like there's choice, there's change, there's potential.
Yes.
Whichever path you're on, you can cross over. So it's not.
That sounds like it's a stairway to heaven too, doesn't it? I wonder if they were borrowing from this. This is just now occurring to me.
That is profound in that beautiful Hopi Prophecy Stone. Thank you for sharing that.
Well,
yes.
How did you make that connection? How did you find that?
The prophet. Oh, wow. Well, that's so famous. I've been tracking, like I said, since 7th grade. I did my first oral report on mass die-offs and coral reefs, and just noticing that there have been many times, like 5 times, that there have been these epic, huge mass die-offs, and they come like clockwork, and it looks like we're due for one. So that was it sounds kind of dark, but as a child, I just felt like this is something important. We should be aware of this. We should be paying attention. And what it starts looking like, if you look at the fact that maybe humans were here, maybe the technology does get to a point where it's unsustainable. And each time we need to keep relearning the thing that hopefully we would have learned before. And I know that if we look geologically, we don't see a lot of evidence of these flying shields in the sky that the Hopi talk about, unless you look at UFO or forbidden histories, forbidden archaeology, that kind of thing. but it's certainly not our mainstream archaeology, or definitely not our regular history, aside from the Hopi and other indigenous peoples.